Welcome, Anna. Hello, Julie. As usual, we're giving it maybe 4 or 5 minutes for people to come in before we get started. Feel free to say hello in the chat if you're so inclined. Hello, Kristen and Bill. We'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll get started. Hello, John. I'm assuming Audrey as well. YouTube Live is acting strangely for you, Kristen. How's well, how about everybody else? How's audio? How's video connection, all that? Hello, Karuna. Karuna, I'm going to be at Empty Cloud on the 1st. The 1st to probably the 9th, somewhere around there. So just about a week. Hello, Louisa, Gregory. All right, I think we're time to get started. Let's share screen. There we go. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Imena punya kammena upajjaya gunuttara achariyupakara cha matapita piya mamang suryo chandimaraja gunavanta narapicha brahma mara cha inda cha lokapala cha devata yamo mitta manusa cha majjata vedika picha sabbe satta sukhi hontu punyani pakatani me Sukang chativedang dentu kepang papetu vomatam. Imena punyakamena. Imena udasena cha. Kipahang sulabe cheva tanupadana chedanam. Ye santane hina dhamma yavanibana tomamang. Na santu sabbada yeva yatajato bave bave. Ujuchitto satipanyo saleko viryava meno. Mara labantuno kasang katun chaveri esume. Buddha di pavaro nato dhammo nato varuttamo. Nato pachekka sambuddho sango nato taro mamang. Teso tama nubhavena maro kasang labantuma. Imena punya kammena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu yavanibbana pattiyam. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, sukha patta chani sukha, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, bhavagupadaya vichihattato etantare sattaka yupapana, rupi arupi cha asanya sanya no dukkha pamuchantu pusantu nibbuting. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, English. By the blessings that have arisen from my practice, may my venerable preceptors and teachers who have helped me, mother, father, and relatives, male and female rulers, worldly powers, virtuous human beings, the higher beings, demons, and high gods, the guardian deities of the world, celestial beings, the Lord of death, friendly people, indifferent and hostile, may all beings be well. May the skillful deeds done by me bring you threefold bliss. May this quickly bring you to the deathless. By means of this meritorious deed and through this aspiration, may I quickly attain the cutting off of craving and clinging. Whatever faults I have until I am liberated, may they quickly perish. Wherever I am born, may there be an upright mind, mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May no harmful influences weaken my efforts. The Buddha is the unsurpassed protector. Dhamma is the supreme protection. Fearless is the silent Buddha. The Sangha is my true refuge. By the power of these exalted ones, may I rise above all defilements. By means of this meritorious deed, may I never join with the foolish. May I join always with the wise until the time I attain Nibbana. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. From the highest realm of existence to the lowest, may all beings arisen in these realms, with form and without form, with perception and without perception, be released from all suffering and attain to perfect peace. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Hello, Visaka. Welcome. Joy, Jayantha. All right, friends. Well, it is Monday night, so that means it's time for another festival of Dhamma with the Maggasekha community. It's time for Dhammapalooza. Dhammapalooza is, as always, community guided, so we don't know exactly how each Dhammapalooza is going to end up. It could be full of questions, it could be full of reading suttas, me giving Dhamma talks, community discussion. It's all up to you guys. So for the next couple of minutes, if you have any questions you'd like me to answer, you can put those in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like me to give a Dhamma talk on, you can put those in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like the community to discuss, you can put those in the chat. I also encourage crosstalk, talking to each other in the chat, encouraging each other, supporting each other, giving each other some, tips or something like that. That's all fine. Right? This is a community event, and I encourage you all to talk to each other, get to know each other, and support each other in the chat. So for now, I'll check out the chat, and if there's nothing, then we'll read a sutta. Or maybe some sutta roulette. We'll see. When there's nothing, you can't go wrong by going to the words of the Buddha. No stream is ever wasted by even 5 hours of hearing the Buddha's words. Looks like it might be a quiet night in the chat. We'll give it another minute or two, and then maybe we'll read a sutta. Oh, here it comes. Yeah, and that's something that we can discuss on the Discord. It's definitely fairly off topic. I'm assuming you said, what did I like about anthropology and what I didn't in terms of my major? Yeah, that's something we can discuss another time. All right. I'm wondering if the Buddha ever talked about the end of the world. There is no quote unquote end of the world. It's all cycles in Buddhism. Like the Buddha talks about cycles of the world system expanding and contracting. So there's technically no end, just like the Buddha is unable to find a discoverable beginning. It's just cycles continuing over and over again, just like our life to life. So too is the universe, just continuing over and over again. Maybe Big Bang to the end of the universe to another Big Bang. That's one of the theories, that the universe kind of ends and begins with Big Bangs. But no, there's no real like end of the world. There's no real like end of the samsaric state either. You know, the Buddha never talks about like a time where all beings will be out of the samsaric state. This is not something that he's concerned about or, spends time talking about. If you really if you really understand, like for instance, the Buddha's use of the word world, loka, the Buddha is almost never actually talking about something outside of this mind and body. There are some exceptions, but almost never is he talking about outside this mind and body. Obviously, when he's talking about like the Deva realms and things like that, yes, because this mind and body can be, can become all these different realms. But yeah, there's no end of the world. At least not a permanent end. This is a good question. This is a good question. If you don't know someone who is enlightened, why do you continue to practice? I'm getting frustrated with the practice and no progress. nobody really knows somebody who's enlightened, or at least we don't know that they are enlightened. The only way that you could know that somebody's enlightened is if you're enlightened yourself. So there's no like, even an enlightened being is not like a savior. Even the Buddha was not some kind of magical savior that all you had to do was speak to the Buddha and you became awakened. This is like nowhere near the reality of things. Even if you were born at the time of a Buddha, your karma, your causes and conditions will determine how far that meeting with that Buddha goes. Right? We see people who became awakened talking to the Buddha. We see people who got nothing and just walked away. We see people who cursed out the Buddha. Right? There's lots and lots of different. This is a misconception that people have because they see so many people becoming some level of awakening in the suttas. They assume that it's just about being by a Buddha. This is not the case. This is not. So it's kind of silly to want to wait till the next Buddha. That's a misconception. I know I'm just going to have to do lots of good karma until I wait to the next Buddha. If all you did was do merit and you never did any practice, by the time you go to the next Buddha, you're probably not going to be awakened. It's not bad, but you do need to set the groundwork for awakening. It doesn't just magically happen. But you can't really rely on somebody else, right? The Buddha says, be an island or a lamp unto yourself. But of course, what's important is kalyanamitas, good spiritual friends. And, monastics or teachers can be good spiritual friends. The way I kind of view it is like you're on a long journey, and part of your group, there are like scouts or rangers, right? Or even so, people who've gone further down the road than you, they leave you little notes, right? This is like there are people who know the path ahead of you. They most likely don't know it all the way to the end because they're still walking the path, but they know the path ahead and they're able to help you in some ways. This is the best you can the best you can really get when it comes to finding good kalyanamitas. The kalyanamitas are both people who can help you on the path because they've gone further than you, and also just good ethical people who support you on the path. A person needs both. Now, in terms of no progress, that's a bit complicated because it depends on what you mean by progress. And each person's progress is based on their karma and their causes and conditions. We don't all just are born in this life and we're just born at the same spot and then we start meditating. That's not how it works. If it would be nice, because I've met people who just started meditating and can sit in meditation longer than I can. That would make things a lot easier if we all just started from scratch, but that's not how it is. We all have our karma. We all have our habitual tendencies, proclivities, etc. These things. So what exactly do you, Bill, give me some clarification about what you mean by no progress. Because the path is going to be lots of hills and valleys, lots of zigzags, lots of ups and downs. And if you start to have insights, you kind of get attached to having insights. And then you're like, after like a couple months, you're like, no, when's the next one? When's the next one? Right? And then you start suffering because you're like, well, there should have been an insight by now. But no, the causes and conditions are not there yet. They will come. It's just like people will go on like a 7-day meditation retreat, and they'll think it's a very profound retreat. They really liked it, but they didn't really gain many insights from it. And they thought, man, I was going to get all these insights. And then like 5 months later, they're online at the supermarket, and an insight arises. And you're like, oh, right. In the beginning, it's hard to connect these things, but the more you experience it, the more you go down the path, you just have faith that all I need to do is set the groundwork. All I need to do is practice. I'm following the Noble Eightfold Path. That's if I'm lost, if I'm struggling, I go back to the basics. I just need to keep practicing, keep following the path. Insights and progress and all of that will arise when the causes and conditions are right. How long have you been meditating, Bill? I'm still pretty angry most of the time. This is depends on how long you've been meditating. It depends on how much metta you've been practicing, how much anger doesn't just go away overnight. I mean, technically it doesn't go away until at least you're a non-returner. Like, you could be a stream enter, once returner, you have 7 lives left, or less, and you still have anger. This is still, it doesn't go away until basically almost the end. 5 years solid. All right. 5 years is not brand new, but it's not a long time either. It's kind of like a middle. You're a Majjhima, like I'm a Majjhima monk, right? I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not a junior monk anymore, and I'm not a senior monk yet. But I still have 3 more years for that. But so you're kind of like in the middle. And have you felt that you've not had any progress on lessening your anger at all? Has there been no progress at all lessening your anger? Even if it's small, if you notice there's progress, there's progress. Hello, Dharma Learner. Hello, Metika. Hey, Sanchez. Okay, Bill. Bill, you've noticed some progress. That's good. That's good. So when the anger arises, are you noticing it in your mind first before you physically act? Or are you still kind of thrown on this roller coaster, and you're only kind of mindful again after it, and you're like, what did I do? And I can't, this anger took control of me. And are you actively, with that anger, being unskillful towards yourself and others? Or is that decreasing because you're starting to know it, you're starting to notice it before it kind of totally consumes you? And listen, again, we don't all start with levels of the same level of anger. Some of us are kind of less inclined towards strong anger than others. And that, doesn't necessarily have to do with your environmental factors. It can, um, how you're raised, your parents, all these things. But, some of us just have a longer way to go with anger than others in this life. Oh, Visaka, if your phone's not holding a charge, might be time to get a new phone. I think my last phone died that way. Oh, Bill did respond. Okay. Mindful after it takes control and unskillful quickly. All right. So it sounds like you have some level of understanding, a deeper understanding of the process. Right? This is why Satipatthana, if practicing lots of metta is good. If you really make metta your practice, your vehicle, that's not going to stop anger from arising per se. I mean, anger is still going to arise for a variety of different reasons. But if you are prone to anger, really using mindfulness, foundations of mindfulness on that anger, investigating it like a detective investigating a case, a scientist investigating something through the microscope, making this aspiration, this ideal that I will investigate this anger. I will understand it as deeply as possible. And you try to learn as much as you can as it's arising, as to why it's arising, what are the causes and conditions that led to it. And also, you learn as much as you can why it's ceasing. You make it your object of investigation. You know the arising, the ceasing, the persisting. Really know it as deeply as you can. And again, this is years and years and years of practice. This is not something you just do for a little bit and you stop. You keep understanding it. You keep the word pajanati. It means to know very well, very deeply, an experiential knowing. So, and then the more you do that, the more metta you practice, you'll start to see that the anger will be more muted, more impotent. It won't be as powerful over you. You'll notice that it's arising, and you'll have developed techniques and ways of letting it go. I was just over with about 8 or 9 other monks doing a live stream that we do every 2 weeks. And this was the topic today, actually, anger. Going over the two suttas in the Anguttara Nikaya, the removal of anger, 1 and 2. So it's an interesting topic. Very, very popular, very large topic that's talked about a lot. Hey, Rick, welcome. All right, I think for now, we'll see if Bill says anything else, but I think for now we're going to backtrack and cover some other questions. What do you make of the fact that the Buddha could not find a definable beginning? The Buddha was not, omniscient. The Buddha could not know everything. Now, we don't really understand the full range of a Buddha. We can't. That's one of the 4 imponderables. We can't really understand it. But I think, the Buddha went back as far as, to the point where he realized, you know what? I think it's futile to keep going back. Or maybe there's a hard limit to how many lives back they can go. But I think that you probably can't find a discernible, or no, if the Buddha can't find a definable beginning, I don't think any of us can, that's for sure. Even the scientists, the ones who are honest, they admit that they actually don't know anything about the Big Bang itself. They only know up to a certain, not nanos, what is it? Not parsec. I'm trying to remember like the really minute, like breakdown of a second that they have. Like there's this barrier that we've not been able to breach yet, right? And it is like the first whatever seconds or whatever, um, from the Big Bang on, right? So, you know, we just don't know. We just don't know. There are some who believe that the universe is infinite, that is eternal, although I don't know that I don't think that that's as popular as a view as it used to be, scientifically, I mean. All right. Sanchez, is it possible to practice Buddhism as a secular practice and become enlightened, or does it take being a monastic to achieve? Okay, so I think you're probably talking about a lay practice because, the secular, like in terms of in America, like secular Buddhism is not the full practice. I don't believe that somebody who's a secular Buddhist could become awakened. Um, if you're a lay person following the Noble Eightfold Path, most likely you're not going to become awakened unless you're quite literally living like a monastic. There are examples of lay people who are basically living like monastics in the suttas. Um, so it doesn't technically take being a monastic to become awakened, but it's ridiculously extremely rare. It's often like somebody who wants to become a monastic, but they can't because they have to take care of their parents, or there's something that is keeping them from becoming fully ordained, but they essentially live and practice like monastics. All right, Julie has a question. When the mind feels like it freezes for a moment or feels stuck during noting meditation, what is that? What is happening? I don't notice what the cause and conditions that led up to this. So you're noting, which I don't do. I mean, I did practice that fairly thoroughly in my early days before letting it go as something that really didn't do anything for me. Um, but I don't necessarily know what you mean by the mind freezes during noting. Can you clarify that? Like, explain it in terms of, you're noting the verbalization and then something happens, etc. If you can clarify that for me, I'd appreciate it, Julie. What does freezing mean in relation to the noting? It's like there's no thought, and I can't even note in that moment. Well, is that a distressing thing or a peaceful thing? The the slowing down and the stopping of things like thought and verbalization is pretty normal as you go deeper. right? This is why, in the jhanic formulation, you have vitaka and vichara, which is, placing and sustaining the mind. That's one of the ways that people translate it. And that has to do a lot with the verbalization, but that goes away after a while. I'm not saying that you're in jhana, but I'm just kind of using that as an example of, yeah, if you're having lots of verbalization in the mind, the calmer your mind gets, the more focused it gets, the less that will be. Yeah, Julie, if you have a teacher that's teaching you a very specific method, they're going to be the best ones to ask. But that doesn't sound like it's anything wrong. I mean, it sounds really to me like it's just your mind is starting to become calm and peaceful. Um, some teachers will teach that you do the noting and then eventually you drop it. And some teachers will teach that you just keep doing the noting the whole time. So that even with noting, there's a variety of practices in that. It might be your mind might just be inclined to just letting go of the noting. Just letting go of the noting and just observing what you're focusing on. But yeah, best bet is if you have a teacher that's teaching you a specific method, best bet is to ask them. Doesn't hurt to have second and third and fourth opinions, obviously. I always encourage, getting opinions from a variety of different people. But yeah, if you're following a specific teaching, best to be the specific, follow the guidance of that specific person. Deepa is both island and lamp. Yes. This is again one of those things where the Buddha says something and it means multiple different things. You're both an island. So an island is what? It's land that's surrounded by water. Similar imagery of the lamp in the darkness. Right? It's the one thing that is different than the what else is around it. The lamp in the darkness. Be your own light. That's basically what it's saying. Be your own light. Right? Be your own island. Be your own refuge. With yourself as a refuge, no other refuge. But then the Buddha says, with the Dhamma as your refuge, with no other refuge. So you're technically not alone because some people can be like, I know I'm my own teacher, I'm my own this, I'm my own that. I don't have to listen to anybody, and they can get really deluded. Believe me, I met such people at Bhavana, people who be visiting. The Buddha says in many places, to check your knowledge with those who you consider to be the wise, right? Because you might be wrong. You know, but it's I never encourage anybody to give up their agency to somebody else. Like to kind of like I'm just gonna do whatever the teacher tells me, and I'm just gonna it's kind of like something that we want to do that we don't want to have to think, we don't have to want to make decisions. We just want to have the guru or the teacher, and then they just tell me, and then I just have to do whatever they tell me, and then I become awakened. Right? That's kind of a very human wish, but none of that exists in the early texts. None of that is, the Buddha's basically like, yeah, that's not how it works in the early texts. but it's still our desire. It's still our inclination to wish for that. That's why everybody wants to find an awakened teacher, because they have that view that, man, once I find an awakened teacher, all I got to do is sit back and I'll just become awakened. Easy peasy, just like that. No, that's not how it works. Julie asked, is anger still related to clinging? Of course it is. Yeah. Anger is what? Anger is um, your attachment to the world, other people, whatever, being how you think it should be. And when it's not, you get angry. That's what anger is. Things should be this way, they're not. Anger. Right? That attachment, that desire of things should be this way, anger. That's just one of those things that arises from that. It's our delusion. That's what it is. We think that we can mold the world to be exactly how we want it to be, but we're delusional. We have way less power than that. We can barely mold ourselves to be what we want it to be. How hard is that? But we want to mold the world. Yeah. All we're doing is creating suffering because of our clinging, because of our thirst, our attachment. Gregory, the Buddha and the early monks spoke in favor of seclusion. Does this imply meditators should be going on long solitary retreats? The idea of a retreat, in many ways, is a modern invention. It really is, right? Like a couple hundred years ago, there's no such thing as retreats. There's no such thing as I'm going to go away for the week and go on a retreat. This is a very modern invention. Um, even at the time of the Buddha, has rules for you can't be too far or too close to a village, right? And you have to go into the village every day to get your food and all of these kind of things. I mean, you're allowed to get food for other monks, but usually if it's like a very senior monk, maybe they're elderly or maybe somebody's sick or something like that. Other than that, you're going into the village every day. Um, so the seclusion was after you eat, you are in the wilderness for the day's abiding, right? You're meditating. So the rest of the day, you're secluded, you're practicing. Now, of course, in the modern day, yes, going, especially as a layperson, if you can a couple times a year, go for a week retreat, get away for a week, or go for for a weekend, a long weekend, a 3-day weekend, 4-day weekend to a monastery, just to get away, to get out of your normal habitual environment. It can be a very important, very powerful practice just to do that. I did that all the time. I mean, before I moved to Bhavana, I visited for 3 years, and in those 3 years, I visited 14 times. I counted it. 14 times. I did 5-hour drives to get to Bhavana, and then 5 hours back. And 6 of those were retreats because I had 2 weeks vacation a year, and I used those 2 weeks, for 2 retreats. The rest were just getting 4-day weekends. So being able to be physically secluded can be of benefit. But the Buddha talks much more in many different ways, not about physical seclusion. He talks about mental seclusion. Maybe you've heard the term noble silence. You go to a retreat and people will say, we're on noble silence for the week. Don't talk unless you're working or there's an emergency or you need to talk. That's not real noble silence. The Buddha's noble silence is after vitaka and vichara are gone in the second jhana, right? The mind is quiet. That's real noble silence. What is the mind in jhana? The mind is secluded. This is the seclusion the Buddha talks about the most. This is the most important seclusion. If you can have mental seclusion while sitting down in 42nd Street in Manhattan, New York City, doesn't matter if there's physical seclusion at all. It's about mental seclusion. That's the most important seclusion. And you can develop mental seclusion even from just your daily satipatthana for doing the foundations of mindfulness practice. The Buddha says that when you're doing mindfulness satipatthana, you're staying in your domain. That means you are mentally secluded. When you're in your domain, Mara can't get to you. You're secluded from Mara. Just like the quail and the hawk simile, which I'm sure most of you know, the quail and the hawk simile. It's a very famous simile. So yeah, that's what I would say. Most important seclusion is mental seclusion. But especially for beginners, sometimes it really is important to have physical seclusion so you can work on your mental seclusion. But if you can go for retreats a couple times a year, I still say do it. That can be very helpful. I kind of spoke a little bit to this, but I can move on a little bit more. So I'm a forest monk. I'll always be a forest monk. That's I'm not in a forest, and I probably won't be able to live in a forest for a bunch of years as I'm building my thing. If I end up giving up on Maggasekha, then I'm gonna find me a forest monastery and just stay there. But I'm a forest monk. I want to be in the mountains. I want to be in the forest. I want to be in a kuti. But I also want that. I'm also very grateful to what's it called, Elon Musk, for that Starlink, because most monasteries I've ever been to, the monks actually want to be able to share the Dhamma. They want to do a live stream, but the internet outside of suburbia is really bad, really bad. Whether it's satellite, whether it's whatever, like I've seen it all at Bhavana and other places. The internet is really bad. So ideally, I would like to be mostly secluded in my monastery, and on the weekends come to the local city to teach in person and to be able to teach online. But really being in my monastery, that's because what I want to do is, like, I love sharing the Dhamma with people, and I will definitely continue to travel to share the Dhamma. But my main focus is going to be growing good monastics. That's really what I want to do. I thought about this a long time ago because, Bhante Ji, one of the best teachers Dhamma teachers in Theravada in the world. There's no doubt about it. No doubt. But he's not good at raising monks. That was never his thing. It's not something that he sought out to do. And so I was kind of like, one of the things that I thought about was, do I want to be the famous monk like my preceptor, like Bhante G? Do I want to just be traveling 8 months out of the year, almost never at my monastery, meeting, teaching Dhamma to thousands of people? The Bhante G would be in places where there would be 1,000 people listening to him, right? But I have one benefit that Bhante G didn't. I have the internet. So I can in many ways have both. I could give a teaching to 1,000 people on a Zoom or whatever, and still be at my monastery with my monks. So that's kind of like, I do want to be mostly secluded. I want to be living in my monastery. Of course, people come visit. I want to have a retreat center. People come for retreats. All of that. I do believe I follow the way that the Buddha wanted things up to be. I do believe that I don't want to be totally separated from lay people. That's not how we're supposed to be. That can lead to very unskillful behavior from monks. But I do want to have a nice forest monastery in the mountains and mostly stay there. I want to die there. That's what I wanted. That's what I tell people in Colorado. I said, I want to make my monastery and then die there. Because by the time I get a monastery in the mountains somewhere, I'm going to be fairly old as it is. Unless I live to like in my 90s, like Bhante G. Who knows? But yeah. So a balance, a mix between monastic solitude and being with lay people to share the Dhamma. I think that's important. Karuna is saying, I'm going to Bhante Rahula's. Ah, very good. Very good. I'm going to Bhante Rahula's too. I'm going to be there for the months of February and March, including 2 of those weeks he's going to be traveling. So I'm going to be kind of holding down the fort. All right. Continuing on with questions. Hey, John, I didn't know you were a physicist. Interesting. I used to have a science advisor. So maybe you can be my science advisor. If I ever say anything sciencey that doesn't sound right, um, definitely feel free to chime in and say, hey, Bhante, you don't quite understand it. All right. Rick says, Bhante, what's the role of hope in Buddhism? So I think when we talk about hope, I don't think there's any explicit teachings on hope. Like the Buddha doesn't really talk about like a couple different suttas. He'll say something like, do not get lost in the past or on the future pin your hopes. Oh, the Buddha what's it? The One Fine Night Sutta. I'm going to say Bhante Buddha Rakita for some reason. The Pali is escaping me. But yeah, it says, let not one revive the past or on the future build one's hopes. Instead, let one understand the presently arisen moment. Let one know it thoroughly and mindfully. All right, so that's really like the only thing in the sutta specifically that I can think of in terms of hope. But I think the real hope in Buddhism is the teachings itself. And what do I mean by that? Most people who kind of have a cursory understanding of Buddhism or in kind of a misunderstanding of Buddhism, I think Buddhism is nihilistic, it's depressing, it's this and that and this and that. And they're totally wrong. Buddhism is not optimistic or pessimistic, actually. It's realistic. The Buddha wants us to see things as they are. And then once you see things as they are, you realize, oh man, this is horrible. And then the hope is, guess what? You can do something about it. If you couldn't follow the Noble Eightfold Path, if you couldn't end your suffering, that would be a real hopeless situation. But you can, and you should. So the hope there is to eventually attain the sweet bliss of Nibbana. That's the hope. Whether in this lifetime or 100,000 lifetimes from now. That is the hope. To eventually end your samsaric cycle. You can end it. You can get out of it. That's where hope comes in. That's the greatest hope of Buddhism. To see reality, to be realistic and understand reality, and then to practice to let go and end your samsaric cycle. Dhamma is thought to be one. Just like Ajahn Chah is thought to be one. People can say that their teacher is awakened, but they don't really know. And just because a bunch of people say their teacher's awakening doesn't necessarily mean you should trust them. I'd be really hard pressed to believe that Deepa Ma was awakened. Really. Especially if she's awakened and she's living in lay life. Now that is perfectly in line with the Mahayana teachings, but that's definitely basically not possible in the Theravada teachings. There's no one who's going to become awakened that's going to stay in lay life. There's no point to it. You just see that in the few times you see that in the suttas, they're just like, there's no point in staying in the lay life. I'm just going to live out the rest of my days in the Sangha. So they become a monastic. Not because their head's going to explode in 7 days. That's later commentary stuff. that does not exist in the suttas. They just really see absolutely no point in staying in lay life. There's absolutely no point, nothing to do, no reason. It can be lots of, the lay life is, home life is dust, very dusty. Homelessness is like the clean air, right? I don't think an awakened being would stay a lay person. I just don't. Meiji Cow is a bit different, I think. Kind of because she is living, as far as I knew, she's living like a monastic. She's living the closest to a monastic that her culture is allowing her to be, which is a Meiji. Right? She can't be a bhikkhuni. She has to be a Meiji. So she's literally living like a monastic. And let me tell you about Meijis. I've met a couple, and some of these Meijis that I've met, their practices are like worlds above many monastics I've met. Like these are powerful women that I've met. So I have lots of respect for Meijis. So maybe, I don't know. Hello, Perennial Daydreams. Welcome. Perennial Daydreams. You should talk to Karuna and visit Bhante Rahula if you can. Bhante Rahula of Line of Wisdom in Maryland is the perennial Buddhist monastic who teaches yoga and who integrates yoga. So he would be the best person to talk about that. He does streams on Wednesday nights on Line of Wisdom YouTube channel and things like that. And part of those streams every Wednesday, doing some yoga with him. So I would say that yoga I'm talking traditional Buddhism here. Traditional Theravada Buddhism even. Many monks do yoga. They just do it privately. They don't do it with lay people. They don't do it in public. And if you ever try to do yoga with robes, yeah, it can be very dangerous. You just don't want to do certain positions. They'd be flashing people and all kinds of things like this. So just like going up as a monk, going up a ladder. If you're going up a ladder, you have to be very careful you don't flash people. So yeah, most monks who do yoga, they don't do it in public. Bhante Rahula is the only monk I know, and that's because of his history. Before he was a monk, he's an older guy. I mean, he's like close to 80 now, I believe. Vietnam vet, hippie on the hippie trail in the 60s, climbing in the Himalayans, for those of you who use the English way of saying it, doing yoga stuff in India, somebody who's been doing yoga longer than I've been alive. So he's probably one of the best monastics to look at in terms of yoga. I do yoga. I did yoga as a layperson. And I do on and off. I do yoga as a monastic. I really should do it every day, but sometimes I don't. And in my nomad travels, my schedule it's very easy to not do something and then to never get back to it. This is one of my struggles of my nomad life. Just like I just wrote 2 of 4 articles, and then I went to Colorado and then this and that, and I'm like, there's a 3rd article I should be writing. I should get back to that. I'm quite looking forward to when I can actually settle down. Nomad life has been good, but I prefer to be in one place for the most part. But anyway, yeah, so yoga's fine. I was really big. Most of my practice has been satipatthana. Like that's really in walking meditation. And I used to do things like parkour. After my weight loss surgery, when I became a crazy exercise nut, I do marathons, parkour, balancing on small logs over streams, and do all kinds of stuff like that. So I was really, really into mindfulness of my body, right? Really understanding my body and really, I mean, even after years and years of practice, I was able to do not just mindfulness while walking, but mindfulness while running and things like that. So if you are a very kind of, and actually I've maybe you've noticed I'm quite energetic today as opposed to a lot of the last whiles. And what I always keep forgetting is that my body is built for activity. My body specifically. I can't say everybody's, but like if I'm not doing some level of exercise, my body just wilts away. So today I was doing some burpees and doing all kinds of good last couple of days I've been doing lots of good exercises, getting back into my yoga, and I feel much better. So I that's something that I got to always remember to do. When I was at Bhavana, I mean, I would be, I was responsible for processing 26 cords of wood a day. So I was doing an hour of woodwork a day, lifting, cutting, lugging, throwing, all that stuff. I was getting some good physical workout in. And I've had less of that as a nomad monk. So, but if I get to start my own monastery in the forest, that's going to be doing a lot of that. There's no doubt. So, looking forward to that if I ever get there. So yeah, very good. I think that if you are an embodied kind of person, you do a lot of physical activities like that, you can be very mindful. It can be a very good mindfulness practice. Hello, Malika. Morning down under. Hope everything is well in Australia. Sanchez says, are there many American Buddhist temples in the USA? Do you predict the growth of Buddhism in the USA? So, if I'm going to go just just Buddhist temple, all traditions, there's thousands of Buddhist temples in the USA, in every state. Even states you'd never think there would be Buddhist temples. Tennessee, Arkansas, whatever. Every state has Buddhist temples. They're all over the place. There's no doubt. And this is because Buddhist immigrant people, they come to America. They're in different jobs. Their jobs, they travel to different, go to different places for their, the corporate or whatever. And of course, when communities grow, they bring their monks with them. So the overwhelming majority of Buddhist vihars, Buddhist temples in America, are ethnic immigrant temples. You're not going to, most of them are not going to know English. They're not really there for the greater public. They're there for their specific Buddhist community. So this is why most people are not going to even know all of these thousands of all these thousands of temples. They're not, because sometimes they might have big grand pagodas, and sometimes they're just a little house. Maybe with a little Buddha statue out front. So in terms of like Western Buddhists, or monasteries that are geared a bit more towards Westerners, there's very few. There's a, at least in Theravada. Again, I don't have a full view of there's a bunch of Thich Nhat Hanh monasteries and, temples, things like that. But in Theravada, there's very few places in the country like a Westerner wanting to learn traditional Buddhism can go. It's much less options in that regard. That's why when I found Bhavana, a Sri Lankan temple in New Jersey that I would go to, that really I wasn't getting what I needed there, what I was looking for. But they told me about Bhavana, and then I went to Bhavana from there, and I never went back. Because I didn't need to. I found what I needed at Bhavana. But do I predict the growth of Buddhism in the USA? Yeah, a little bit. Mostly through immigration, though. Not really the number of Buddhist converts in America is really low. I would be surprised if the number of Western Buddhist converts, these are people who are fully Buddhist. When you're talking about other quasi-Buddhist and maybe I'm Buddhist Christian, or the numbers get much bigger. But fully converted Buddhists, I'd be surprised if there's more than maybe 100 or 200,000 Western Buddhists in America. There's very few. Buddhism is very small in America. So I don't think that Buddhism will ever be some kind of large force in America. But I think it's still growing. Sure, that's part of what I want to do. It's part of my mission, is to help the Dhamma grow in America. To do my part to build more places so that more people can hear the Dhamma. But I have no delusions that America will become even a quarter of a Buddhist country. That's not going to work that way. Ah, Rick. All right. Well, thank you, Bante. I was at the doctor today. It came up that after 40 years of having hope of getting better, I no longer have that hope. Since 2018, I focused on accepting things as they are. Yeah, it is good to have hope that you might find something, but then in many ways, it is freeing when you're able to accept it as it is and then try to adjust your life and adapt to that so that you can live as good a life as you can. I mean, like I've had my whole life, I've had these mucus and all this stuff, and people throwing me out of meditation halls in the morning because I'm coughing up a lung. Those of you who do morning monastery experience, you'll see sometimes it sounds like I'm coughing up a lung, even though I try to get most of it out before I go live. Um, and people always say, "Well, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this?" Do you? And yeah, I've examined it all. There's no quick. There's no what do they call it? Pill that's going to fix that. Or at least none that I want to take, um, because it really doesn't do anything much. But yeah, there's a power in acceptance, because in a way, if you're able to accept it, then in many ways you're kind of able to see it better. You maybe don't have such an adversarial relationship to it. You can understand it a little bit better, and then maybe it's not as much of a hindrance. It's not so much of a pain. I mean, there's people who freaking don't have legs and they've figured out how to live life. It's like I remember years ago actually watching this guy in Australia who is a motivational speaker. He doesn't have any arms or legs, and he gets around the day. He does, it's like people find ways to live with whatever they have, and when you're able to kind of accept it, I think that's a good start in really integrating it and understanding it better. Hey, Steve. Steve, I'm assuming this is a Steve that I know. You've been on our sessions before, right? Or is this a Steve that is a totally new Steve? Oh, Malika, you did it. You visited monasteries in Thailand. Very good. What monasteries did you go? Did you go to any old Steve? All right. Hello, Joseph. Welcome. One of these days, I want to go to Thailand in January so I can go to the week long memorial of Ajahn Chah. I want to go to that. That's one, at least once in my life. I want to go pay respects to Ajahn Chah that way. Anywhere else and anything else I do in Thailand is a bonus. That's really the one thing I really, really want to do in Thailand. Oh, you went to Lungpur Ganhas. Yeah, Lungpur Ganha comes up all like for me. I just keep meeting monks that have been there and talk about him. Did he throw candy at you? did, did you see him riding around in his little golf cart thing? So Lungpur Gunha is this interesting character who's the nephew of Ajahn Chah, and he's known to, like everybody and their mother, he's known to be awakened possibly, but he's very joyful, very like metaful, and throws candy at people and things like this. Sounds pretty interesting. If I do go to Thailand, that's definitely a stop I'd make if I'm able to. Wapanana Chan, yeah. Or Wat Nan, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's time to do some meditation. Chat's quiet. We have 20 people. 20 people and the chat's this quiet. Because that's sometimes how it goes. But once we start our meditation, it'll probably drop to like 6 or 7. We'll see how it goes. So we're at 8:17. We've been going for an hour and 17 minutes. All right. Let's do maybe about 20 minutes of meditation. Joseph is asked to meditate on the elements. Sure. Why not? Let's do it. Just close your eyes. Set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you. Whether you're on a meditation cushion, a chair, couch. Spend some time scanning through the body, starting from the feet, moving up to the head. Or most of you here have done this with me before, so we won't go into detail like usual. It's a shorter meditation. Setting up your body in whatever comfortable and stable position works so that you can minimize pain and discomfort later on. When you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, scanning through it, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then when you're ready, let the breath go. Remember, you are trying not to manipulate or control it, simply to observe it, to understand, to abide with the breath as the body breathes in and out. Stay with the breath, whether at the nostrils or the rise and fall of the chest. Keep your focus on the breath as best you can. Remember, when you're distracted away from the breath, acknowledge that you've been distracted away. Practice letting go of the breath by not getting agitated or continuing to be attached. And then return to the breath. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Now, for the rest of this meditation, we'll do our guided reflection on the elements. Reflecting on the various elemental parts of this body is a practice seen in the Satipatthana Sutta, Four Foundations of Mindfulness, under the section of body. It's another way to understand what this body is, what it is composed of. So I'll be going through the four elements, giving some guidance and reflection on how to investigate each element. And this body is the earth element. The Buddha describes the earth element as all the physical, hard parts of the body, the skin, muscles, the bone. Can you feel your bones while sitting? Feeling the skin and the muscles pressing against the chair, the cushion, the mechanics of the lungs, breathing in and out. The movement of the tongue, fluttering of the eyes. All of this is earth. The solid aspect of the body. The organs, nails, hair. Earth is that which is solid. There is also in this body water. All the various liquids in the body, the saliva in the mouth, the urine in the bladder, the bloods circulating throughout your body, mucus, all many different kinds of liquid, all serving one purpose or another. We know in modern times that a huge percentage of the body is liquid, most of it. You can reflect on these various liquids, what they do. as you're doing that, you might have likes and dislikes arise. You can reflect on why you might have disgust towards some liquids. In this body, there is wind. There's various flows of air and open spaces in the body, such as the air coming in through the respiratory system into the lungs and out through the mouth. Air in the digestive system and gases. Maybe even some air in various spaces and different parts of the body. All of these flows of air also serves a purpose for this body. And finally, there is fire in the body. This is temperature in the body. Various places that have heat, even the life force, the heat of the body. The warmth of the tongue and the mouth. The rise of the temperature when you're sick. The weather changes effective on the body lacking heat, the body suffering an excessive amount of heat. Various aspects of the body related to fire, warmth, heat. Slowly start to open your eyes, becoming aware of the room around you, your body's position in it, reflecting on the state of your mind from before and after the meditation, and contemplating any experiences that stood out to you during the meditation. We'll read some Dhammapada, then we'll do our closing business and call it a night. Violence. All tremble at violence, all fear death. Putting oneself in the place of another, one should not kill or cause another to kill. All tremble at violence. Life is dear to all. Putting oneself in the place of another, one should not kill or cause another to kill. One who, while himself seeking happiness, does not oppress with violence other beings who are also desiring happiness, will find happiness hereafter. Speak not harshly to anyone, for those thus spoken to might retort. Indeed, angry speech hurts, and retaliation may overtake you. If, like a broken gong, you silence yourself, you have approached nibbana, for vindictiveness is no longer in you. Just as a cowherd drives the cattle to pasture with a staff, so do old age and death drive the life force of beings from the existence to existence. When the fool commits evil deeds, he does not realize their evil nature. The witless man is tormented by his own deeds, like one burnt by fire. He who inflicts violence on those who are unarmed and offends those who are inoffensive will soon come upon one of these 10 states: sharp pain or disaster, bodily injury, serious illness or derangement of mind, trouble from the government, or grave charges, loss of relatives or loss of wealth, or houses destroyed by ravaging fire. Upon dissolution of the body, that ignorant man is born in hell. Neither going about naked, nor matted locks, nor filth, nor fasting, nor lying on the ground, nor smearing oneself with ashes and dust, nor sitting on the heels in penance can purify a mortal who has not overcome doubt. Even though he be well attired, yet if he is poised, calm, controlled, and established in the holy life, having set aside violence and towards all beings, he truly is a holy man and a renunciant, a monk. Only rarely is there a man in this world who, restrained by modesty, avoids reproach, as a thoroughbred horse avoids the whip. Like a thoroughbred horse touched by the whip, be strenuous, be filled with spiritual yearning, by faith and moral purity, by effort and meditation, by investigation of the truth, by being rich in knowledge and virtue, and by being mindful, destroy this unlimited suffering. Irrigators regulate the waters. Fletchers straighten arrow shafts. Carpenters shape wood, and the good control themselves. All right, friends. Let's do our final business, then we'll share merits and call it a night. Let's bring up the banners. So, if this is your first time with Dhammapalooza and you'd like to get to learn more and follow my other activities, you're welcome to go to the website listed on the screen, maggasekha.org, Maggasekha.org. Maggasekha means student of the path being the Noble Eightfold Path. On this website, you'll be able to be updated to everything I do, every new article, new retreat, new video, new live stream, my travels, etc. That this is my headquarters for activity for everything. So if you go there and you on the right side on the website, the top right, you can put your email in and you will get an email notification every time I post anything on the website. Same thing on YouTube. You can click subscribe, click the bell, and you'll get notified every time I go live, every time there's a new video, etc. We also have the Maggasekha online community on the Discord program. This is a community that we're now 8 years old, and we are a community that both studies and practices in accordance with the early Buddhist text, the suttas. So if this is a community that sounds interesting to you, you're welcome to send an email to the email listed below, maggasekha@gmail.com, and ask for an invite, and we'll send you an invite. So in terms of regular activities that we do during the week, Monday night when we can is Dhammapalooza. Next Monday, I will be doing Dhammapalooza, but I'll be at Empty Cloud. So that'll be an Empty Cloud Dhammapalooza. And then Monday through Friday, we normally do what's called Morning Monastery Experience. This is a half-hour session in the morning at 8 a.m. New York time that includes precepts, some chanting, some Dhamma, little Dhamma talks, a little bit of Dhamma learning, a nice fresh start for the day to start your day with Dhamma. So you're welcome to join us Monday through Friday. While I'm at Empty Cloud, though, I will not be doing it. It'll be breaking I think 4 or 5 month streak that we've had. There's some places where I cannot do it because it conflicts with the schedule at the place. So while on an Empty Cloud, no Morning Monastery Experience for the week, and then we'll continue on once I'm out. Also, we have Saturdays. If you're on the Insight Timer program, you can join me. I'm a teacher on the Insight Timer, so you can join me Saturdays at 3 p.m. New York time for an hour-and-a-half session, half-hour meditation, half-hour Dhamma talk, half-hour question and answers. Then Sunday nights for 7 p.m. New York time on the Discord server, the Maggasekha online community comes together and we read suttas. We've been doing this for 8 years. We've gone through close to about half the suttas, somewhere's around there. Maybe not quite half just yet. We have a couple thousand pages of suttas read with a couple thousand more to go. So probably in another 7 or 8 years, we'll finish up reading all the suttas. Then we'll get started again. But we read suttas, people meditate together. There's other monastics on there. There's Ayasudhamma Bhikkhuni is on there. Venerable Pasana, who's a bhikkhuni down in Australia, is also on there. So, this is a wonderful community. So you're welcome to join if you like. But that is the main event that we do on that community, Sunday nights. And then, of course, Monday night Dhammapalooza. So this is the regular activities of the week. And with that, why don't we share merits and then close out? Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, sokha patta chani sokha, hantu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha mehi, sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sappa sampatti siddhiyam, akasata jabumata, deva naga mahiddhika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share in this dispensation of ours. May they long share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. Suki Hotu, may you be well and at ease, practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which could be tomorrow morning in 11 hours for morning monastery experience, or could be next week for Dhammapalooza, or who knows. Have a good week.